Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. It looks like we have a couple of people signing on, so we're just going to get started in just a minute. I hope everybody is enjoying this nice, almost fall day today. I love waking up and it's a little chilly.
It is nice.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and kick us off, Mario, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
So thank you everybody for attending this morning's webinar. We have a really interesting topic to go over with you guys today. Just a few housekeeping items and we'll get into some intros and then we'll just roll right into our presentation. For everybody that's joining us today, you are muted and we cannot see you. However, if you have questions, please plug those in to the chat box or the question box. We will do our best to get to everybody's questions today, but we would love if this can be a little bit of an interactive presentation. I think it's always best when we can hear from the audience and get a little insight into what people are thinking as we roll through the presentation. After the presentation, you will be receiving an email with some additional information following today's presentation. And of course, if you have any questions outside of anything you may want to share with the group, you can absolutely feel free to reach out to me. My name is Chrissy Magnata. For those of you that don't know me, I am the Director of Client Engagement with Katz Pierz. For those of you that do not know Katz Pierz, we are a local employee benefit consulting firm based out of Cherry Hill, New Jersey. We've been around for over 30 years, really focusing on understanding the industry, understanding what solutions are out there, and we're constantly looking for the best of breed products and programs to be able to bring our clients. And that is the reason for today's conversation. So we do have Mario here with us from Benecon, and I'm going to let Mario get into really what Benecon is and why the program is so interesting and why it has been so successful for those that are a part of that program. So I'm just going to go ahead and just kick that right over to you, Mario, if you want to get started.
Great, thanks, Chrissy. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. I'm Mario Severa, Vice President of Sales for Benecon, overseeing the Northeast sector of the United States. One of our consultant partners that we work with is Katz Pierz. We're very selective in the consultant partners that we work with. We want to make sure that they are experts in self-funding and really keeping abreast of the marketplace and what we would consider, as Chrissy had alluded to it, best in breed products and services. Excited to be here with you today and kind of walk you through a few things. One, we're going to give an overview of the marketplace, the standard risk management platforms that exist, the common risk management platforms that are in the market. Talk a little bit about Benecon, give you an overview, a foundation of understanding as to who Benecon is. And then we're going to talk about the Veris program, which is our national self-funded platform. As Chrissy had said, please feel free to submit questions. She knows to interrupt me at any point in time during this presentation. If that question is applicable to content at hand, I'm more than happy to answer it. Or at the end of the presentation, if you have any questions, please let us know. So that said, we're going to get this started. So the first thing I want to cover are these different risk management platforms that exist in the marketplace. So we're going to walk through fully insured, what's called carrier level funded, and then standalone self-funded. I'm sure that you probably have some common knowledge of these platforms, but again, from a foundation perspective, just kind of want to walk through them. So as you know, with the fully insured platform, the insurance company set the premium amounts. Their in-house underwriters develop those rates. Every year there's a re-underwriting that occurs. So they're looking at your prior year's performance, what has occurred and what they project to occur going forward. A lot of times those rates can be a lot higher than the risk at hand. We can definitively say that because when we look at our clients that transition from fully insured or our clients that have some level of claims data available, we feel that their rates are at times artificially higher than they need to be. That is a common trait within the fully insured carrier underwriting model. They're usually underwriting to a 65% to 70% loss ratio, and then they're building in 30 to 35% of administrative expenses, reserves, reinsurance requirements that they may have themselves. There's obviously no possibility for any of that premium to be returned to you, so you're signing up to pay that amount. And then you pay that throughout the year, and whatever happens on your behalf, the insurance company is responsible or has the upside return of keeping those dollars should you perform better than expected. There's also, I touched on this, but the higher administration costs coupled with premium taxes that are associated with a fully insured plan. Those two line items are going to, again, increase your annual expense as it relates to a fully insured program. And lastly, again, and this is really a big one for us, there's no transparency, right? Not only is it a lack of access to claims data, in some instances at a certain size, north of 300, sometimes limited north of 100, you might have some claims data, but even more importantly, a total lack of financial transparency. You really have no idea why you're paying what you're paying. Use the example of you're getting a 20% renewal. You're not really sure why you're getting a 20% renewal over current. Your consultant then goes to market and gets it down to a +8. And I guess you feel good about that. But should you really? Do you really know what just happened? So that lack of financial transparency to us is a major differentiator to what our program does, and it's something to highlight within the fully insured realm and consider. The next risk management platform to discuss is what we call carrier level funded. This is a hybrid of both fully insured and self-funded. So again, you have carrier underwriters that have a profit mindset, setting the premiums and the rates in these programs. It is built on an allocation structure of admin, administrative expenses, stop loss, and a claim fund. Now, you're also somewhat limited in your ability to customize plan designs in a program like this. There is minimal transparency. There is a little bit where you can see what happens on your behalf, but not a lot. And then on top of that, the way the surplus allocation is structured, surplus meaning whatever's left over at the end of the year, you don't have the full upside of retaining 100% of that. It's only 50%. And if you were to break down the three cost elements of admin, stop loss, and claim fund in these programs, the claim fund would represent about 45% of your annualized spend, and you only have the ability to retain 50% of what's left over in that bucket of money. And then lastly, and unfortunately, should you ever leave this program, any surplus that you have, you forfeit that amount. The insurance company keeps it. So now if you stay in the program, you're able to roll your surplus forward and take advantage of that amount. So this is definitely a stepping stone towards being self-funded, but I think you'll see as we go through this today, we feel as though there are more strategic stepping stones than the traditional carrier level funded model. The last one to review is being standalone self-funded. This obviously means that you have complete transparency, you understand the financial makeup of your program, you have access to your claims data. But the scary part about being standalone self-funded is that if you're an organization with less than 1,000 employees, from an actuarial risk assessment, you would not be considered creditable, meaning that the laws of predictability don't apply. and any given year, volatility could strike. If that volatility strikes, meaning there's a spike of claims, that stop loss carrier that you're currently working with has some strategic levers to pull that could dramatically hurt you financially. They could non-renew the program. They could apply a laser on behalf of any individual that is exceeding a certain amount of health insurance dollars. So as an example, if someone developed cancer at renewal, the insurance carrier could say, we're going to apply a $250,000 laser on behalf of John Doe. And that amount is then in addition to your group level premium that you'd pay. So if you were paying $1 million the year before, you'd have your renewal, let's say it's 1.1 million, and then a laser of 250,000. It means that your all-in cost would then be $1,350,000. So a laser is a very scary thing. It is a big financial risk for a standalone self-funded group and something they need to be aware of. On top of that, there's usually not a cap at renewal time as to what could be charged. So if you have a really bad year, a volatile year, you could receive a 50% renewal. When you're north of 1,000, those laws of predictability apply, and at that level of bandwidth, you're in a more stable environment to be self-funded. But less than 1,000, again, it can go up and down any given year, and that could be really scary. We call those pitfalls, and they're things that could really harm an organization from a financial perspective. And then on top of that, you're also required from a compliance perspective to meet certain Erisa guidelines and standards, being a self-funded group. So you would want to ensure that either you have the internal resources or your consultant has the resources to ensure that you're set up correctly from an Erisa perspective. Should the Department of Labor ever audit you, they're going to want to make sure that you have all the requirements in place, being a self-funded group. So that's kind of a brief overview of the 3 risk management platforms that exist in the marketplace today, common risk management platforms that exist. And then there's the Veris program. So Veris is administered by Benecon. Benecon is based in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm actually going to jump ahead real quick here. We've been administering self-funded consortiums for over 30 years. The first consortium that we started was back in 1991. It was for municipalities based in Pennsylvania. And at that time, PMIC, which is the Pennsylvania Municipal Health Insurance Cooperative, was born. Today, we have 280 municipalities across the state of Pennsylvania that make up that program. At the bottom of this slide here, you're going to see different brand images of the various consortiums that we administer. So Benecon is the program administrator of these programs. And what that means is that we're providing our own in-house actuaries. They're the ones who are setting the rates within these programs. That's important because the only money that Benecon makes in the program is disclosed in our proposal on a per employee per month basis. We make no commission on stop loss. There are no embedded fees in our program. The only money we make is our program management fee. Why that's important is that when the actuaries are setting the rates, they're not doing so with a profit mindset. They're doing so with what we label as equitable distribution. We want the client paying for their predictable layer of claims, but any volatility that exists is then transferred to stop loss. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the Veris program. At the top of this slide, what this is really highlighting is what the consortium model is intended to do. Versus an entity standing on its own, we're bringing these entities together to leverage their bandwidth and secure favorable stop loss terms and conditions, as well as strong financial premiums, enabling a client to go strategically self-funded and avoid the common pitfalls that I previously outlined when you are standalone self-funded. So a little bit about that bandwidth, what that's made up of. Across these 14 programs, we have about 1,600 clients, and we're placing a little over $475 million of stop loss. So again, what that does is enable us to bring strategic terms and conditions to each of our clients and ensure that they're protected in a self-funded capacity. Our retention rate is 98%. Last year, we lost 15 clients, 11 of which were due to merger and acquisition activity. Only 4 left for financial reasons. When groups come in and see what we do and how we do it and how the model is structured, which we're going to walk through in a minute here, they just don't leave. They see the value in it, the difference it is compared to those traditional risk management platforms, and they stay. Just to kind of finish the thought of program administrator, and I highlighted actuary and what that is. We're also providing finance and accounting. So our clients are paying one bill on behalf of medical and RX, and then our finance and accounting team is remitting to all the parties that make up the program. By the way, you do have a financial breakdown, though, of all of those line items and fees. In our program, you are pulling back the cover of your healthcare spend, and you have a level of insight as to why you're paying what you're paying on behalf of this ever-growing expenditure. Compliance, full compliance resources and services. We're going to make sure that you meet all of the Erisa requirements to be self-funded. And lastly, Connect Care 3. This is a nurse navigation and wellness program that I'm going to highlight at the end of this presentation. So we're going to skip ahead here. This is just a map of our national presence at this point in time. It seems like every month we're opening a new state. We're growing very rapidly. Veris, again, is our national platform and program. It's one of the 14 consortiums that we administer. The other 13 consortiums tend to be very niche specific. I mentioned that we have one for municipalities, we have one for school districts, we have one for colleges and universities. But Varus is a heterogeneous program that is available to all industry classifications. So let's talk a little bit about that. Veris today is made up a little over 900 groups, 92,000 plus employees, and of that 475 million of stop loss for placing, Veris represents 255 million. And what those numbers really represent, again, is the core of what we're doing, which is we're bringing all these groups together to leverage their collective buying power and then pass down in an individual capacity the power of those numbers. It's very similar to what Costco can buy something for versus what you and I can buy it for. It's just 2 different levels of buying power. But what that buying power does is that it provides those protections. And we're going to walk through what those protections are in a second here. In the program, you have the ability to customize your benefit plan. With the guidance of a consultant like Katz Pierz and access to all of your data, you'll now be informed to make strategic decisions on your behalf as to what plan design makes the most sense for you and your employees. And that could mean a variety of things, whether it's a retention tool or you're setting up your plan design because you're identifying certain trends that could be happening within your claims data, and then setting up a plan to ensure that from a cost allocation perspective, how services are being utilized is commensurate with your financial goals. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a negative towards employees' experience. That's not what I'm referring to. It's just that we're at a stage now in healthcare where you do need to be strategic in how your plan design is structured so that the employee, when they're accessing care, their behavior is strategic and prudent. And here's a minor example. In your plan design today, if you had emergency care at the same copay or deductible as an urgent care facility, you may want to rethink that. Accessing care at an emergency room is a lot higher of a cost than at an urgent care facility. So if you saw that 10 to 15% of your population was accessing initial care at the emergency room versus an urgent care facility, you may want to change the cost accumulator, the copay, the deductible, et cetera, so that the employee, you're manipulating their behavior, that if it only costs them $50 to go to urgent care, but it costs them $250 to go to the emergency room, they're going to go to the urgent care facility. And then obviously it comes within reason. I mean, if they're seriously injured, they should go to the emergency room. If they have a bee sting, don't go to the emergency room, go to the urgent care facility. Again, a minor example. There are a lot other examples that I would take up too much time explaining today, but just a brief snapshot as to how you can use that data to make more informed decisions on behalf of your plan design. The other thing to note here is that we're carrier agnostic. So again, we're the program administrator and we're integrating with carriers across the country. So in Southeastern Pennsylvania, in the New Jersey area, we work with Independence Blue Cross, Aetna, Cigna, United Healthcare, AmeriHealth, Horizon Blue Cross. We work with all of these carriers and we leave it up to our clients to determine what they strategically feel is the best carrier for them. Now, these carriers do have rules of engagement, meaning they may have requirements such as a minimum size, or if they're currently on your business today in a fully insured capacity, they may decline to work with you in a self-funded capacity. And there could be a variety of reasons as to why that is. If you want the honest answer, it's because they're making a lot of money on your fully insured business versus you going self-funded. But point is that there's different rules of the road as to which carriers you can work with. But you do have the ability to choose, and Benecon and Katz Pierz can easily provide an outline as to, based upon your unique circumstances, which carriers you have the ability to align with and work with. There's no upfront capital to join the Veris program, and it's only a one-year commitment. So that's important to note. That's probably a big differentiator between us and, say, a captive program. We're not a captive. A captive is a registered insurance company. It needs to meet reserve requirements as defined by the State Department of Insurance, where the captive is registered. In the Benecon program, Veris, it is a consortium. Every group maintains their own individual identity. So your claims are your claims, but where you leverage, again, is that collective buying power. That's the only aspect of a common term of pooling. You still have an individual contract with the carrier you work with the Veris program, and the reinsurer, which in the program is Everest Re. They're AM Best, A+ rated, and they are headquartered based in New Jersey. So, Chrissy, I'll pause there for a second. Have any questions come in so far before I move on to the next phase of this?
No questions yet.
Okay. So this is the model of the program. So there's three cost buckets. There's the administrative fund, the specific and the aggregate stop loss, and the claim fund. The admin piece is made up of Benecon's program management fee, your consultant fee, and the fee to access the carrier network and have them adjudicate your claims. These are all disclosed in our proposal on a per employee per month basis, and it's going to represent about 8% of your annualized spend. The next piece of this is the specific and the aggregate stop loss. This is where Benecon's buying power comes in. So we're delivering stop loss rates that are commensurate with that just shy $250 million that we're placing in the market with Everest Re, and able to leverage that to bring you strong financial premiums as it relates to specific and aggregate stop loss. Now, just in case everyone's not familiar, specific stop loss is covering any one individual over a certain amount. So let's say that amount is $50,000. The claim fund will pay up to that first $50,000. Anything above that, the specific stop loss contract steps in and protects you and the client and the member and pays over and above that amount. The aggregate stop loss is the plan as a whole. So let's say, again, you're spending $1 million, your claim fund is exhausted, you spend that entire million, the aggregate stop loss then steps in and pays the amount over and above. There are no clawbacks, financial cash calls in this program. The insurance is there to protect you for any volatility that could strike. The last piece of this, and I should mention, the stop loss is representing 23% on average of your annualized spend. The last piece is your claim fund. Again, this is your predictable layer of risk in the program. It represents just shy of 70% of your annualized spend. Whatever is left over of the claim fund at the end of the year, you retain 100% of that money. Should you ever leave the program, you do not forfeit that amount. So it's pretty powerful. Going back again to the carrier level funded model, where it was 50% of a pool of money that represented 45% of your annualized spend, and should you leave, you forfeit it. In our program, it's just shy of 70% of your annualized spend, and you're able to retain 100% of that money. Now, when I say retain, what that means is that you need to roll it forward into the following year's healthcare spend. It's not like we send it back to you in the form of a check and you put it back into your general assets. But let's say you had $50,000. $50,000 is going to go as far as $50,000 can go. And the fact that you have that and you need to use it for your healthcare spend, it's hopefully freeing up $50,000 that you wouldn't have realized in some of these other health insurance risk management programs where you would be spending it. Now, maybe you're allocating it to some other capital project that the company has that is required or needed. So it's a really nice feature to our program. And again, should you leave the program, that's when we do send you the money back. And just a little bit of insight as to why we do that. We set up a health trust bank account in your name. Any interest that accrues is yours to retain. With the money staying in that health trust bank account, when a surplus occurs, if it were to be sent back to you, a tax event could occur. By keeping it in the health trust bank account, you avoid that tax event. Now, when the money goes back to you, should you exit the program, as long as you seek counsel with your accountant and book the funds correctly and essentially reallocate them towards future healthcare spend, you too could avoid that tax event from occurring. But when you're in the Veris program, it's just so much easier for us to not have to keep up with 900 plus groups and ensure that they're booking those funds correctly from a tax perspective, that they remain in the health trust bank account, and that account stays open and is active the entire time you're in the program. And again, just want to highlight that should this be exhausted, the claim fund, you owe no more at that point in time. That's when the aggregate stop loss steps in and pays the amount over and above for the program. So the next, yes, go ahead.
We do have a couple of questions, so if you don't mind, I'm just going to pause you there because I think they're relevant. So going back to the discussion around pooling. So how does the Veris program reduce volatility by pooling in the consortium?
Yeah, so reducing the volatility, and it's a great question, it's very timely. So 80% of the stop loss premium that you pay has nothing to do with your experience. It's purely predicated off of our buying power. 20% of that stop loss premium is directly correlated to your experience, your plan design, and your census. So should you have a bad year from a claims perspective, the stop loss premiums that you pay aren't going to spike up. 4/5 of that premium is still going to be predicated off of our buying power and that $250 million that we're placing. Part two of that answer is because of the amount of money that we're placing, we're able to offer our clients guaranteed renewability, no new lasers in perpetuity. Once you're in the program, a laser could never be applied. and there's a rate cap at renewal. In the history of the program, we have never released a renewal greater than 30%. Average annualized increase in the program before surplus return is 9.7%. When you factor in your surplus to your renewal, average annualized increase in the history of the Veris program, which started in 2012, is 3.1%.
Great. And then actually, I do have another question. I think that rolls right into what you were just saying. So I guess the question is, how does the renewal process differ from the carrier level funded model? We know that those programs can be volatile, sorry, renewal.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, I don't want to beat up the carrier level funded model, but it really is very similar to being fully insured. A few things there. I mean, one, again, you have an underwriter that has a profit mindset that's setting those rates. Because the carrier is keeping 50% of any surplus that exists on your behalf, they have the ability when you first enter those programs to do what we call in the industry buy business, where they will underprice you to acquire your risk, knowing that if they can maintain you as a client for 3 to 5 years, they're going to make money on your behalf. So they want to get you in the door, and then hopefully you stay, and then they're able to make money. So what that means is that once they get you in the door, your year 1 to year 2 renewal can be volatile. It can be increased. It's not uncommon for us to see a 20 to 30% increase in year 1 to year 2 because year 1 is underpriced. In our model, we do not underprice in year 1. We do not add a significant discount to the prospective client that we're looking at. We truly assess the risk at hand and advise the client as to what we think they need to pay to, again, cover that predictable layer of risk. Because keep in mind, on behalf of 70% of your annualized spend, this is 100% your money. So we don't want you to underfund yourself and then be in a position in year 2 to have to catch up to the risk at hand. Our goal is that in year 2, there's a medical trend factor, which in our program averages about 7% that will apply. And then the actuaries look at it and say, how did they perform year 1? Do we need to take them down a few points or up a few points? All the while, again, you have complete access to all of your financials. Every month you receive reporting to understand money in and money out on behalf of your fixed expenses, which is the admin and the stop loss, and then your variable expense, which is claims. You'll see reporting every month where the money is going, how much is occurring on your behalf as it relates to claims, and how you're trending. So that at the end of the year, you'll have a really good sense as to, are you in a position for a surplus or are you not? And then at renewal time, our actuaries will provide that renewal and we'll walk you through, and you'll have already seen it, but what occurred on your behalf and where we strategically feel you need to be to cover risk at hand, all the while having these protections in place by leveraging the Veris buying power that we have.
Perfect. Thank you. We do have a couple more questions, but I think I'm just going to hold those for now and let you.
Okay.
I think you might address those later on.
Okay, great. And some of these bullet points here are a bit repetitive. We covered them, but I'll quickly say them again. This is administered by Benecon. Again, we're strategically independent. We are not the reinsurance company. We are not the carrier. We are the program administrator, bringing independent actuarial resources, finance and accounting, compliance, and then Connect Care 3. The purchasing power in the Veris program, again, leveraging that $255 million and growing in premium to ensure that we're able to bring those strong financial premiums for stop loss and those stop loss protections. Those protections guarantee renewable. There's also what we say is no re-underwriting, meaning at renewal, we're again assessing the predictable layer of risk, but your stop loss, your fixed costs, they have very little to do with an underwriting evaluation. That's the buying power that we have. So it's not like it's specific to risk at hand. Again, 80% of the stop loss premium you pay has nothing to do with your experience. Control, you have the ability to work with different carriers, full transparency, both financial and claims data. So just point out on behalf of the claims data, just so you're aware, it can be de-identified, meaning that you as a plan or program executive within your company, if you want to see the claims data, but not who it's on behalf of, you could have it set up that way, where all you're seeing is what's occurring versus who it's occurring on behalf of. That's referred to as de-identified. And when we set it up with the TPA, if you would like it to be that way, de-identified, it certainly can be. In this day and age of PHI and HIPAA, most companies select that because they have a high degree of sensitivity regarding, PHI and HIPAA requirements. Savings, there's immediate savings from an admin perspective. Fully insured programs, depending upon your size, admin costs are going to be 15 to 20%. In our program, it's 8%. And then again, you have those taxes that you're paying in a fully insured capacity as well. And lastly, and this obviously is a big one, is that surplus. 100% of it is yours to control. It's important to note that if you want to leave the money in the bank account for the time being, you can. As long as we have 30 days notice when and how much you would like to deploy on behalf of your surplus, we can do that for you. It's totally up to you. So it's not like you're forced to use it the following year. Most groups do. They take advantage of it and use it to offset those monthly premiums that they're being charged. And it simply works. You'd have your invoice. You'd be invoiced. Let's just say your claim fund is $50,000 and you have a surplus of $10,000 that you're using month over month over month. So you'd have a credit of $10,000 and then you would owe $40,000 for your claim fund. So it's offsetting the claim fund piece and it's directly noted on your invoice. And by the way, you do receive bank statements as well on a monthly basis. We want you to know in our fiduciary capacity on your behalf, everything is being done above board and correct. Hence the quality and the extent of reporting that we provide to you. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but this is really just a stack up of the Veris program compared to standalone self-funding and fully insured funding. If you'd like a copy of this presentation at the end, Chrissy and her team can provide it to you. But this really is a nice overview of a lot of the things that we touched on and the check boxes that Veris has compared to some of these other programs, the protections that are in place, the upside that we offer, while avoiding the downside of a lot of these programs. So this is an example of a client that came into the program. So they were fully insured. Year one, they paid a little over $1.1 million. They then received a 12% increase, bringing up their premium to $1,270,000. They decided to come into the Veris program and pay $5,000 more than their fully insured equivalent rate. But at the end of the year, they were able to have a $266,000 surplus. And that obviously is theirs to keep versus in a fully insured capacity, the fully insured carrier would have kept that. Not to beat up on fully insured carriers, but let's be honest, there's a reason in every metropolis they're in a high rise, right? They're making a lot of money. So why not flip that script and put yourself in a position to take the profit that they would ordinarily be taking, but do so in a strategic way where you're protecting yourself and avoiding the pitfalls that could easily throw you off track in a standalone self-funded environment. So just my little sales hat there, if you will. So this is the last aspect of the presentation, and then Chrissy, I'll turn it over to you for any questions. This is Connect Care 3. This is embedded in our program. Our chairman and CEO had started this program. He was diagnosed with cancer, and he felt a little bit overwhelmed during his recovery journey. And when he got back on his feet, he started Connect Care 3. And what it is the bullet points that you see here: patient advocacy and nurse navigation. To touch on these, should someone be diagnosed with a serious ailment, they would call into Connect Care 3, be assigned a nurse. That nurse is then going to help that member understand exactly what's occurring on their behalf. Help them get answers to questions that may whether confuse them or stress them out. Obviously, anyone who's facing a difficult health situation is hopefully not an expert on behalf of it. It's the first time in their life they've had to deal with these circumstances. And our goal is to help the member get answers, avoid a lot of stress that could be associated during the recovery process. If the member would like the nurse to sit in on meetings with the doctor, the team of doctors that member has, we're more than happy to do that. We're not there to second guess the doctor. We're just really there to be an advocate and a resource for the member and follow their recovery journey along and help them get some answers, avoid some stress, and hopefully position them as strategically as possible to recover as quickly as possible. So this chronic disease management prevention falls into what I just described there as well. And the last two are more wellness-based initiatives. So should a member want to eat healthier, lose weight, quit smoking, start an exercise regimen, they would call in, be assigned a wellness coordinator. That coordinator is going to help that member define their goals and then embark upon that journey with the member as well to help them accomplish those goals. So this is received numerous accolades as far as our team of wellness coordinators, and they do a phenomenal job. And how you as a company would leverage this, they would strategically work with your team to determine the best way to transfer this knowledge to your members, meaning making sure the members are aware that this service exists for them. And on the left-hand side here in these bullet points, there's a variety of examples. It could be newsletters, emails. We know that at open enrollment, member retention is probably about 20%. Health benefits can be a bit overwhelming. It's certainly not the most interesting topic at times, and some people just kind of want to, move on with their day. But then when they do want to quit smoking or they are faced with a serious health condition, we want them to know and remember that Connect Care 3 is there for them. So how that happens really could be different company by company, and the company knowing their employees well and the culture of the employees, and therefore the best way to ensure that we're getting the message out that Connect Care 3 is a viable resource. They should be taking advantage should and if they wish to do so. So that said, that was the last thing that I had. So Christy, I'll turn it over to you for some of those questions and jump back in the presentation if I have to.
Sure. Yeah, just to piggyback off of what you said about communication, we are constantly talking about that internally with our clients. Communication with employees is key. And, when you're going through open enrollment, we're throwing so much information at them that we really make it a point to come up with a true communication strategy to make sure we're connecting with employees throughout the year so they understand the resources they have available to them. I think as I roll into some of these other questions, and I did have a couple of questions that are kind of within the same animal, and it's really around requirements and what it would look like if a group wanted to head into this program. But I just want to say that, for our clients that are on the call, or just anybody that maybe will want to talk to their own consultant about a program like this, it's really important to understand your group specifically. And it's important to understand the goals of the organization as you're having conversations about the right financial model for you and your employees. And, that's a conversation we're obviously having constantly. But, as you kind of talked through some of those different types of financial or funding models, the education around that is really important, because sometimes it can be quite overwhelming for those that don't live in our industry to understand that there are so many different types of financial models and really what the benefits and potential cons are for each. So with that being said, we did receive a couple of questions just about requirements. So if somebody is looking to evaluate a program like this, are there specific requirements for the employer to be able to qualify? And if you could possibly talk about the difference between New Jersey and PA, because we do have both folks on the call today. And then a second part to that is there a specific time of year that would be beneficial for somebody to join a program like this?
Sure. So requirements, again, there's no industry classification requirements. All companies are eligible to join. From a size perspective, the minimum in New Jersey is 50 plus enrolled. The minimum in Pennsylvania is 25 plus enrolled. And what we're targeting every day is that 25 to 50 up to 1,000, which we label as middle market. That's where we are operating and extremely active throughout the year. That is our target audience from a size perspective. So that's really the only requirement. It's not like workers' comp where we're going to shy away from certain types of risk, if you will. We'll take the bridge painters, we'll do the underwater welders, like it's all good. That's fine with us. It's more, I think, an evaluation, kind of the second level of thinking there is to, what's a good program or a good profile to enter a program like this? I think if you have moderate to strong benefits and a healthy mix of singles and multis, meaning single tier enrollment and then the multi-tier enrollment, it's a healthy mix. I think our program will show very well on behalf of an entity that has that profile. If it's an entity that has a lot of singles, and when I say a lot, meaning like 80% of the population is enrolled in the single tier, and the benefits are categorized as potentially moderate to weak as far as their structure, we're going to struggle there to show well compared to some of the alternative funding models that exist in the marketplace. And the reason for that is that in the first scenario that I described, the first profile, there's a greater ability to generate premium in that type of financial model. And because of how our premium rates are developed, that's where we're going to differentiate ourselves, because there's going to be more substance to a program like that, and therefore us having the opportunity to financially show a larger difference versus as you skinny it down, it's just a little bit harder for us to make as much of a financial impact. That said, the concept may still resonate with you as far as what we do and how we do it, and that in and of itself may be the impetus to join. But in the vacuum of just financial evaluation, that first profile is where we're going to show really well.
Great. And then, just one more question as we get ready to wrap up here. And please, anybody that's listening, if you have any questions, feel free to throw those into the chat box as we're wrapping things up. But can you speak to the employee experience? Is the employee experience, very different from what they've experienced with the fully insured world that they've always had, that they've always kind of been familiar with?
Yeah, good question. And I realized I didn't answer your other question too about time of year, so I'll answer that one as well.
Okay.
No, the employee experience really should remain the same. The ID card that they have, it's going to list the carrier on that. So their expectation as to how they access care, whether it's at the doctor's office or at the pharmacy, none of that changes. They're still handing that provider their ID card. It's not going to say Benecon on it. If the company didn't want the employees to know they were self-funded or in a program like this, the employee wouldn't know. They couldn't know because the ID card they had would be the same experience in a fully insured capacity, where it's going to list that carrier. If they have a question on a claim or an accumulator on behalf of their plan design, they're either calling Katz Pierz or they're calling the customer service line at the carrier. So Benecon is purely in the background, and the employee wouldn't necessarily know who we are unless you, as the employer, wanted the employees to know that you are now self-funded and working with a company like Benecon. And as far as time of year to join this program, we would work with you on your anniversary date. And we do have two common stop loss renewal dates, which is 7/1 or 1/1. Because keep in mind, we are pulling together that buying power. So there needs to be a common anniversary date to accomplish that. So the stop loss would renew on 7/1 or 1/1. You can keep your plan anniversary date if you would like to do so, or you could align with the stop loss renewal of 7/1 or 1/1. And in aligning, we're happy to write a long contract. So let's say that your renewal was April 1st, and you wanted to align with 7/1, we can write a 15-month contract when you first come into the program, and those rates would be locked in for that entire 15-month period.
That's great to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, when you're talking about the employee experience, it really does come down to the group and the type of employees you have on whether or not you share the funding model. But I think in our experience, it really is for the employees, they're just using the insurance like they always have. And for the employer, it's a matter of what their appetite is to really take back some of that control in their financial aspect of their benefits. Well, financial and really plan design too, right? Because there's a lot of flexibility an employer has to make decisions around the type of plan designs that they're putting into place. I think that's wrapping up our questions for today. I'm not seeing any more come in. I think the presentation was fantastic. Thank you so much, Mario. I think for those that join the call that maybe have heard the terms before, but maybe really didn't understand the difference between the different funding models. I think you did a great job at explaining why those models are different, and again, kind of those pros and cons of the different funding models. And again, if anybody has any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to forward those to Mario, answer those for you, whatever we need to do to help you better understand what a program like this might look like for your organization. And with that being said, Mario, if there's nothing that you wanted to add, we can go ahead and wrap things up for the morning.
Just thank you. Appreciate the opportunity Katz Pierz has given Benecon to share our model and what we do, and appreciate everyone who attended today and hung in there for an hour to talk about health insurance, which could always be a riveting topic, said sarcastically. So no, thank you, and wish everyone the best.
Great. And just a reminder, MEA, who is one of our strategic partners, is having a Total Rewards Summit on October 6th. So if you're interested in registering for that, you can go ahead and register, under the Katz Pierz name. You can feel free to reach out to me. We will have Lenny Katz and Joe Sulpizio speaking at that event. It is a hybrid event, so it's both in person and virtual, depending on your preference and schedule. So please feel free to reach out to us if you would like some more information on that conference. And thank you to everybody that joined us today. And I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your week.
Thanks, Christy.
Thanks, Mario. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.